Welcome, family. So, my name is Chris. I am a lash artist, a lash coach at the Six Figure Lash Coach. I am also a lash supplier, Lash Gang official, and I have been lashing forever. So, I wanted to make a video and just get into it on my lash journey. I've done like some really cool things in the lash industry, and I've just never made a video on my journey. So, the funny thing is, I did not want to be a lash artist. And everyone's like, oh my God, you're like such a good lash tech. I'm sure you always wanted to be this. No. No. No, 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 no. I did not. I did not want to be a lash artist. Like, there was nothing in me that wanted to lash. So, backstory, I went to school for marketing. So, I graduated with a business degree. I went into corporate sales. It was really cool. I decided to quit. And just a really quick story on why I quit. So, I really felt that God was telling me to move, to leave, to go out on my own. My mom is an entrepreneur. My dad is an entrepreneur. My mother is a cosmetologist. She's been doing hair for like 30 something years, 33, 34 years. She's had multiple salons. So I grew up as a shop kid, which is why I did not want to do lashes. Like, I saw what like owning a salon was like. I saw what being in beauty was like. And even though like she gave us a good life, like I was like, that's a lot of work. Okay. Like, I want to go to corporate America. I want to have stable paychecks. I want to know how much I'm going to get paid. I don't want to go through these rough seasons. You know what I'm saying? Like, because at the time, I associated corporate America with stability. And then I associated being in the beauty industry and being like an entrepreneur. I associated that as a roller coaster. So I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always had a super entrepreneurial spirit, but because I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go the sales route. So I went into sales, whatever. So I quit because God told me to. I'm gonna make a whole nother video about that. So I quit because God told me to. Literally, when I quit, and I was at my time, at my tenure, I was the number one person at my tenure with my sales volume. So I was doing good. Like, I was actively about to roll out like a new a new program with the director, of my office. So it was crazy. So you go from that to then going from like, hey, it's Monday morning, because I quit on a Monday morning in November. I gotta quit. And he's just like, why? I was like, because God told me to. And when I tell you, them people thought I was crazy. Like, they thought I was crazy. And I thought I was kind of crazy too, because I was like, I got a good $2,000 to my name. I don't live at home. I just bought a new car. I was just like, ugh. Okay. But I wanted to tell the truth because I felt like if I didn't tell the truth, then I was betraying my truth. And it's like, I cannot betray me. And I additionally, of course, even before myself, I cannot betray God, right? And because I feel like it's on my spirit to move, like I have to do this like authentically, and I have to do this with truth, right? So it was a very wild time. They thought I was like bonkers. They was like, do you need to like take like some time off? We can give you like some FMLA. And I was of course thinking like, man, I should probably do that, because then like if this don't work out, I can still go back. But it was just like, if I take option B, I felt like I was telling the universe, God, and myself that I didn't fully believe in option A. And just because like I knew it was so spiritually driven, because literally the night before I went to church and I took my best friend, we were roommates at the time, and I'm like, girl, come to church with me. I'm so scared to go to church because God has been talking to me so clearly, and I feel like if I walk into this church, literally Jesus is going to, all churches have like the crosses in the back of like the man preaching or whatever. So I'm like, Jesus gonna walk off, and like if he do that, like he gonna get me because I haven't been listening. And literally we got in there, and the pastor was like, resign, resign. He said resign like 5,000 times. And I'm like, bro, God is talking to me. I was like hyperventilating. I was about to be one of them people like on the ground, and like the nurses of the church have to come put the white sheet on, because I'm like, okay, God, I've been playing. I've been hearing you. I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Like, I ain't got no money. I ain't really got no plans, but I got some faith. I have some belief. My mother believes in me. I grew up, doing this. So I know that I can sell things. And I know that when my back is against a wall, I will prosper, right? I definitely have the grit, the goal, the ambition. You know what I'm saying? Like all of that. So I was just like, okay. So I quit. I quit my job. And then the funny thing is, even when I quit my job, we went on the road. I was selling like shapewear products at the time, and it did really, really good. Like working with my mom, like we did all sorts of stuff, right? So I've done every expo from here to freaking Texas, whatever. And then I was like, okay, so I want to work in the shop. And I was like, I'm gonna do brows. So I was doing like brow extensions at the time. Brow extensions came out, and you literally was like gluing like the little fake hair, like it's like a lash hair to the brow, and then you go over with this little powder and you make it feel like you have like more brow hair. So that was like pre, like brow tattoo and whatever. So I was doing that, and I mean the brows was like falling off. But I was doing brows. I was tinting and stuff, and like at the time I thought I was cold. People thought I was cold. When I look back though, I'm like, well, some of them was crooked, but whatever. It was paying the bills. And my mom was like, you should do lashes. I think that would be like really good for you. And I'm like, girl, because I had got my lashes done. Like when I was in corporate America, when I quit, I wasn't wearing lashes. But when I was in corporate America, I was getting my lashes done, right? And at the time, it was only classic, but I was getting them done. So she was like, you should look into that. I think that'd be good for you. I'm like, girl, I don't want to be behind nobody's head that long. And she was like, well, I think you should try it. Also, my mom is like my biggest motivator. She's the one who was like, you should quit this job. Like, you only making such and such. Like, you should not be afraid to walk away from that because you can do this, right? So I was like, all right, Deanna. That's my mom's name. I was like, all right. And I didn't call her Deanna, but I'm just saying it now. But I'm like, okay, Deanna, I'm going to listen because you be having the answers. Like, you got the answers, bro. So I took the class. Funny story is the first class that I found, because classes weren't as like prevalent as they are now. Like lashes, like I've been doing lashes for almost 10 years. So like lashes wasn't like as big as it is now. So you couldn't just find like lash classes. So I did some research. I found this one lady's class and I paid the deposit. My mom was like, I'm gonna pay for the class for you. I was like, okay. So I paid the deposit and she ended up having to cancel the class. And when I tell you this was God, God canceled this class for me because I didn't know anything then. But when I look back, I'm like, she literally had us like, she was going to teach me from picking like single, like classic lashes out of the jar, right? She didn't even teach off a strip. And like now, like the classes, like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, she's terrible. So had I taken her class initially, I probably would not be where I am because I would have just probably gotten discouraged. Like, this is wild, and I would have just never progressed. So she ended up canceling the class, sending me back my deposit. I found a lady that's here in Illinois, and her class was much more expensive. So this is like back in the day, her class was like $1,600. So that's kind of pricey for then. Even though now, you see classes that are $1,500, but even now, like a lot of classes are like $699. They're cheap. Now we're seeing like some $3,000, $4,000, whatever. But back then it was like, what? So whatever. I'm like, well, I want to go to the best if I'm gonna try it. So I went to her class. Took the class. It was a 2-day class for classic only because I don't even know. I'm sure volume existed, but lashes were like kind of so new to like the urban market that like even class, you could do a great career with classic. So yeah, so took her class and it was good. I mean, I sucked. So I tell everyone like lashes is a skill, not a talent. If you take a great class and get a really good technique and you just work on perfecting that technique, you will be a great lash artist. But none of us start great. So did that and it's like, cool. Now I'm a lash tech. So what I did, I lashed, and I encourage people to do this too. So I lashed every day for 30 days. I did free lashes, right? Because I was like, okay, I think it's going to take me about 30 days before I'm ready to charge. Now, luckily for me, my mom had a salon and she had a clientele. So I just like lashed them. I grew up with them, whatever. So I was like lashing her clients, like lashing my friends. I lashed my sister. I think she was my first model after the class. And I literally got her entire lash line on both eyes stuck together. And we were in there like trying to peel them open. So like I'm super new at the time. So the amount of sweat and stress that I was experiencing in that moment, because I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Like, and her eyes are red and tears and so I'm just like, whatever. So did 30 days of lashes. Then I had my first client. I started off at $100 for my sets or whatever. And I did my first client. I was literally like hyperventilating. I thought I was going to pass out. I felt like God was coming. It was like the rapture. Jesus was coming back because like my heart was pounding through my chest. It was freaking wild. But I ended up finishing and she liked it and she booked again. So it was cool. So like that was like my first client. And then back then my goals was like I want to make $100 a day, 5 days a week. So like my initial goal was to make $500 a week, right? And I was mostly doing full sets, and my full sets was $100. So I was just like, okay, I gotta have at least one person a day. Like I gotta fill these slots. And then I'm like, okay, I'm making more than $100 a day. So you know, you go through like learning how to do refills, blah 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 blah. So I went through like all of that stuff, and I can chop these videos up. Like I can make videos like on that, like specifically. But I want to like, you know, kind of condense this one and so you can get the whole story. But yeah, so I was doing $100 a day, and then I was doing like, you know, $200, sometimes $300 a day. And I was like, I am freaking rich. Like I'm rich. Like, is this rich? Like, am I a rich, like, you know, bish? Like I'm rich, right? So yeah, I thought I was rich. And then I was like, Mom, I want to make $500 a day, $5 a week, and then I'm gonna be like a rapper, like rich. Like I was so funny back then. I really thought that I was rich, and I remember telling her, and I was saying that in front of one of her clients, and I remember her client like looked at me like I was crazy, and I was just like, no, it's possible, it's possible. And she was just like, oh, okay. Also, backstory: so many people thought my mom was literally insane for being supportive of me quitting my job. Like literally, they thought she was insane. Like, why would you let her do this? And then so many people were like, well, because I've never been like super like in like the popular groups. I've kind of always been like more of an alternative person. So like I wasn't in like, I'm in Chicago, so I wasn't in like the Chicago like super scene like that. And I remember someone was like, well, you know, if you're not in that scene, you're not gonna make it. And it's like, well, boo, I made it. And I'm still, you know, alternative on some alternative stuff, and I'm still making it, but whatever. So yeah. So, and when I was telling her the $500 a day, like, you know, she looked at me crazy. So that's just to say, like, people are going to discourage you, but like, just continue to do what you feel is best, right? So, and then I got to like making $500 a day. And the first 2 years, I was building clientele. I will say though, I was blessed, but I was hustling. Like, so I was doing free people. Like I was finding like little like influencers or whatever, like in Chicago, like, hey, I'll do your lashes for free. I quickly learned that you got to be kind of strategic, because you get the girls and they got like the, you know, the curvaceous bodies, and they have like these big followings on Instagram, but then all they're following is men. So it's like, I'm doing your lashes, but like only men are looking at your videos. So I was like, okay, that ain't gonna work. So now I started looking more for people that were in the industry. So like if you were like a bartender, maybe a bottle girl, and you were seeing like other women, and then I was like, ooh, I want to do hairstylists. Ooh, I want to do like nail tech. So I started like really targeting people who, you know, I knew were in front of other women who may be like a little bit more beauty oriented. So going into year 3, I had a really booked clientele. And then year 3 to however, I had a super booked clientele. I went from like $100 sets up to like now my most expensive set is $250. And now I'm at like $100 per hour is how I charge like for all of my services. So no matter what I'm doing, I'm making $100 per hour, and had like a super booked, you know, clientele then. And we'll go into like, you know, in further videos to come, we'll go into like how to know when to increase your prices, because you definitely don't want to stay at the same price point. So now I'm making like over double of what I was making previous. Oh no, I'm making double. Sometimes I make over double though. Like there are some sets where I make over $100 an hour. So it just kind of depends like on what I'm doing. But yeah. So that's that. Had a full booked clientele. I have had multiple salons. So I took over my mom's shop and I turned it into like a lash shop. And then I moved to a bigger salon for 3 years. And from that salon, I actually bought my own commercial building. So I am a commercial building owner, and I do have lash suites in the Chicago area. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. I will say that lashes have been like amazing for me. Also, backstory, I did start a lash brand, right? So when I'm saying that I made over $600,000 in a year, that's including like my lash brand as well as lashing. And I don't even know like fully how much it was, but it probably was about like, I don't know, six or seven. I don't know. You got to give or take like with the trainings and stuff, because that's like a whole nother thing. So I'm a lash trainer. With all the training money I made over the year, like paid for a new car, renovated my house, like all sorts of stuff. So I would say that like lashing, like you start as a lash artist, but if you become a really good lash artist and you study the craft and you stay committed to all of like the up and downs, like you're definitely gonna have a great career. Like when I tell you lashing has changed my life, and I used to be so embarrassed to tell people I was a lash artist because I'm like, I went to college, you know, I'm the first, not first generation, but the first one in my mom's, you know, whatever, that like got a college degree. Like, you know, I went to great schools when I was in Chicago. And it's just like, you know, the people that I went to school with, they're like marketing directors and like all of these like what sounds to be like these very prestigious titles. And it's like, what you do? I'm a lash artist. And I used to feel like insecure because I'm like, if you're not into beauty, like you're not gonna know that like I make bank though. Like you're not gonna know that I'm like, you know, considered wealthy when you look up like what is considered wealth in America. Like, yeah, I fall into that category and I do glue synthetic fibers to people's natural lashes. So yeah, it was kind of crazy. So but backstory, so like I was saying, like that includes all of that. So for me, so I was a lash tech. I still am a lash tech. I still do lashes part time. I do have also a commercial building where I have lash studios, and that's relatively new. I do also have a lash brand. So in the midst of me becoming a lash tech, I became a mom. So I have a 4-year-old son, and I was making all this money as a lash tech, and I was like, man, but I'm pregnant now. And I was like, I really do want to be a hands-on mom because you know, like the game in services, you have to systemize, strategize, systemize, whatever, implement systems into your lash business so that your business will run efficiently and you can maximize profit. Because the biggest part about like what I preach like in the lash artist business is that you have to have a premium pricing strategy, and you have to implement that because time is money and you want to be able to make as much money as you can while you're selling your service, right? So you have to strategize how you run your lash business so that you can make the most off of your time. So when I was pregnant, even though I'm making like a lot of money because I've implemented these strategies, it's just like I'm here, right? I'm working every day, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and I want to be a hands-on mom. So I was like, you know what? I got to do something. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a lash brand. And I had wanted to do that before. I was reselling other people's products before. So I was like, you know, this is the time. And another thing, God gave me this. Like I never had to think about the name. I was like, okay, it's gonna be called Lash Gang Official. Like it had already been ringing in my ears, ringing in my ears, ringing in my ears. Never had to think about it. Never sat down and wrote it on paper. It just came to me. So started that, and I'm like, okay, it's going good. Figured out how to like get a website. Now I'm like a little ecom guru. But yeah, and that it just went like crazy good. So within like the second or third year of that, I was actually able to pay myself a 6-figure salary just from, you know, the lash sales business. So and I use that, like all of the money there, that is what I use to purchase my commercial building. So since being a lash tech, I became an esthetician, a mom, but I also became a realtor. Because especially once you start like making more money, you free up your time, and you're making, you know, more, like you're making more money than you need. You got to figure out ways to invest. So like I don't necessarily come from a family who owned a lot of property, right? So for me, the way that I figure things out is that I learn, and I'm pretty good at school. So I was like, well, look, I don't really have a bunch of people to call to ask, like, how do you buy things? Like, how do I know if this is going to be a great property? I've always been like interested in HGTV. I am a salesperson. So I'm like, well, I'm sure I can sell a house, like, whatever. So I was like, but also, I want to understand like the intricacies because like I don't have anyone to lean on and I'm just out here like trying stuff. And I've tried a lot of stuff that failed. So let me get enough information and let me see if I could do this for myself. So I ended up going to get my real estate license. And with that license, I was able to secure myself a townhome for my son and I, as well as a commercial building. And I was able to buy them actually both in the same week. As well as get a business loan to do like the build out. So, yeah, like so lashing, it's been like really good for me. And it all starts from lashing. So I was able to use my lash product business to do all of those things, but it all started from that chair that I still sit in, right? So when it goes into like the conclusion of like, do I recommend this industry? Absolutely. I will not say that the industry is easy. I won't say that, but I will say that it can be a whole lot more difficult when you look at what we make. Because even as a lash artist, I was pulling, like, if I were to work 40 hours again, I will be back at like $200,000 a year, 204, something like that, right? And when you look at that salary and you look at what jobs pull down a $200,000 salary, you kind of get into like the doctor realm, right? So I will say that taking a 1 day or 2 day class and then going and practicing, the first 2 years is kind of like practice, right? By the third year, from what I've seen and all of the trainings that I've done, and I've done a million trainings with people, typically you start making money in that third year. If I were to go be a doctor or a lawyer or some other like high stakes career, I would probably have to go to school for at least 4 years. I think doctors go to school for like, I don't know, like almost 10 years, don't quote me. And then you have to do residency and all of those things. Like I can start a very lucrative career and be off the ground within 1 month from a training and really be off the ground within 24 months from starting, right? And then at least be at six figures. And then I got another 2 years where I can double that six figures and I can be doing it consistently and no one can fire me, right? And then you can't like just shut down my business. If the whole world shuts down, which it has, we've lashed through COVID, I can go lash on a street corner. Like you cannot take away my skill because this is something that I have. And I'm not necessarily looking to be employed. I just have to show my value so that clients will book me. So I will say that I do think the lash industry is phenomenal. It has changed my life. I'm literally going to Mexico to a super beautiful resort with my 4-year-old son, my mom, my sister, and my dad. My parents are divorced, but we're like a really cool family, so we'll talk about that. But and able to show my son the world. Like we live in a really safe area. He has financial as well as like just physical security because everything is safe. So it's definitely changed my life. And I know that there is just more on the horizon. I definitely believe that I have everything, the knowledge, the experience to turn this into a $1 billion business, right? Like seriously. And that's not even like, and this is from someone who didn't want to be an entrepreneur. This is someone who was like being behind somebody for 2 hours doing their lashes. Like that sounds crazy. Like mom, you're on, like you got to be on something. Like because, like why? Why would you think that I would do that? I do not want to do that. So, like I literally was almost like pushed into this industry, and it has turned out beautifully for me. And I know that there's a lot of new techs and they're like discouraged. And I know like the economy is interesting right now. But I'm definitely telling you one thing that people are going to spend money on, especially women, is beauty, right? A woman is going to be beautiful, right? So I do think that, you may have to learn some techniques, some like marketing techniques, but if you're doing good work and you pair that with good marketing, you are going to do good, especially if you have strategies, especially if you have systems, right? You have to systemize your business in order to highly monetize your business. Don't be doing it off the cuff. If you don't have an answer to why you're doing something in your business, then you should not be doing it. I don't know, or I saw such and such doing that. That's not an answer. Like you have to have technique behind your skill set. You have to have strategy and systems behind your business, because you're not just a lash artist. When you come into being a lash artist, and I think this is where people fail, people will get good at the skill, but they just see themselves as a lash artist. When you come into being a lash artist, you are not simply a lash artist. You are a lash artist, or you are a lash business owner. So you have to also speak to the business. You have to run the business. You have to manage the business, right? Because being a skilled professional is not enough. And we'll talk about that in other videos. I can talk forever about this, and I'm really trying to keep this like short, or as short as possible. But it's just not enough, right? And I come across a lot of intermediate to advanced lash techs, and they're making the money, but they're not managing the money. So their lifestyle does not reflect the income. And it's just kind of like, I would love to just be able to jump in and be like, girl, you got to run your business. You got to manage your money. And if you do that, you can set yourself up for long-term success. It's not just about making money today. It's about making money forever. And you use that chair as an internship. You're getting paid an internship, and you figure out the solutions that you require, right? You document them, and then you teach them, because there are going to be lash techs that come after you, and they're going to face the same issues. So you almost want to run to the problem. And as soon as you run to the problem, do anything you can, whether it's paying for coaching, whether it's, buying more classes, watching a million YouTubes, you do whatever you can to find a solution. And you find a solution that you can speak to. You have to make sure it's a technique, because if it's not a technique, you can't teach it. So that's another thing. So if no one cares about technique, remember this: if it is not a technique, you cannot teach it, right? Because in order to teach something, you have to be able to turn it into a recipe. Otherwise, your students aren't going to catch on. So that's that. I know I kind of got all over the place, but like I told you guys, when I say passionate about this industry, like, I am passionate. My mom works for me full time. She is our receptionist. My sisters have worked for me. I have a little sister that's 15. She works part time. She can run the whole business. My dad does all of the maintenance for the building. So like, we are actively living generational wealth, and I know that we're just on like the cusp of what's to come. So I love the industry. I would never go back. Like, I would never go back. Like, I'm gonna get like Lash Gang tatted on my forehead. Like, it's Lash Gang like forever. And I just hope that my story can be inspiration, and I hope that I can definitely encourage people who are newer lash techs, struggling lash techs, burnt out lash techs that are ready to quit, or people who are contemplating entering into the industry. I hope that I can encourage you to do so, because if you have the mindset, the discipline, and the willingness, you can change the trajectory of not only your life, but lives to come, because you will make so much money in this industry, and you don't have to sell lashes. You don't have to do trainings. If you're making $204,000 cash a year, if you learn how to manage your money, you can invest that money into whatever you want to invest it in. You might want to get into real estate. You might want to get into stocks, whatever. But you can use that money as a tool to secure your future. Okay? So I hope that you guys enjoyed hanging out with me, because I really did enjoy telling that story. Like, I haven't told it, and I didn't like script this or anything. I just kind of went off the cuff. But I haven't fully, like, ever, I don't think, over all of the years I've been doing lashes, like, told my full story. So I really appreciate being able to do that, and I really appreciate you guys listening. Make sure that you are subscribing. Please make sure that you are connecting with me on Instagram. Also, I do have a 10K mastery course. The link is below, and it'll help you create consistent $10,000 plus months in your lash business as a lash tech. I will talk to you guys soon. See you later, Lash family.